Congressman Andy Ogles of Tennessee spoke at the state capitol yesterday about Stop the Invasion, a public notice to, quote, send every last illegal alien back where they came from. Here's what Ogles had to say at the press conference.
And I will always choose my country, my community, my state over illegals. And if that offends you, the door's over there. We are a land of laws.
For more, let's bring in president and executive editor of the Daily Signal, Rob Bluey. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Good to see you, Emily.
I like the way he said that. You know, if you're not on board, then there's the door. That has been the Trump administration's kind of vibe the whole time as well. Your reaction to that?
Well, certainly, and what we've had over the course of a couple of decades now is an influx of illegal aliens into our country, and frankly, no president besides Donald Trump who's been willing to tackle this problem the way he has. In his first term, obviously, there was a massive effort to build a wall and impose some new policies to get this issue under control. Unfortunately, on day one, Joe Biden undid all of those efforts, and we went from having the most secure border in our history to a situation where millions upon millions of illegal aliens flooded into this country. And so it is going to take a massive effort on the part of people like Tom Homan and others in the White House to make sure that we're doing everything we can to deport those who are here illegally back to their home country. And I'll tell you this, Emily, I think that this is an effort that really is going to hinge on the success or failure of this reconciliation bill in Congress. You've heard Tom Homan say in the past that he needs more resources, he needs more beds to carry out this deportation. And whether or not Congress gets this done is going to be a big mark in terms of whether President Trump is viewed successfully addressing this problem.
And Rob, there's a direct impact on from illegal immigration on regular, average, everyday Americans, be it in public safety or in their pocketbook. Check out this Breitbart headline, which says, Speaker Johnson, there are more than 1.4 million illegal aliens on Medicaid. Here's Johnson himself.
We are not cutting Medicaid in this package. There's a lot of misinformation out there about this, Jake. The numbers of Americans who are affected are those that are entwined in our work to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse. And what do I mean by that? You got more than 1.4 million illegal aliens on Medicaid. Medicaid is not intended for non-U.S. citizens.
Rob, while cutting the fraud, waste, and abuse is obviously a very good start, there are some who argue it's not going to go far enough in terms of cutting the deficit.
Well, Terrence, we know from studies from people like Robert Rector at the Heritage Foundation, who has looked into this, that while the headlines tend to focus on the criminal aspects of illegal aliens, there is a huge cost in terms of the American social safety net programs that they take advantage of. And so Medicaid, as Speaker Johnson just pointed out, is one area where American taxpayers are forking over a lot of money to provide care and support for those who aren't even U.S. citizens. And so, yes, there are going to have to be steps. I think this is one area where Republicans, and you heard him start there by saying, we are not cutting Medicaid. This is an area where Democrats and the legacy media have gone after them aggressively, and I think he's right to focus on the areas where Medicaid is being abused. The other aspect of that, of course, are all of those able-bodied people who aren't working, who should be, working in a job and trying to, find their way and not necessarily relying on a government handout to get ahead. So I think this is an area where Republicans are on solid ground, and I hope that in the Senate, when this reconciliation bill is debated, they hold firm to those reforms that they put in place.
Well, let's talk about the Senate here, Rob, for a second. What's your best guess? I mean, Ron Johnson says, look, the deficit's out of control, and this bill is not serious about cutting spending. And he's right. I mean, he's right. So the question then is, you're going to lose Rand Paul. You know that. You're probably going to lose Mitch McConnell. Collins and Murkowski are, who knows, they're wild cards. And then you got Ron Johnson. I mean, so how is this going to work? I mean, the numbers are not there at this point, unless this bill becomes more conservative, so to speak, in terms of the deficit reduction. Then maybe you get Ron Johnson, maybe you get Rand Paul. How do you see this? Rob.
Yeah, and David, you'll remember that after the Senate is done with it, it has to go back to the House, and so you need to make sure that you still have some agreement there. I mean, there are the
reconciliation of the reconciliation. Yeah, right.
It's a lot of work, and remember, there's a caucus in the House that was for in putting in place the state and local tax deduction. You don't necessarily have that in the Senate, but that's an area where obviously there's a lot of government expenditures that you could cut back potentially in the Senate. There are other things that they could do. for instance, they could make sure that the spending cuts happen a lot sooner in the bill than what they're currently in. You could also have more changes to the subsidies from the Inflation Reduction Act. That was the Joe Biden legislation that there were some constituencies in the House that didn't necessarily want to cut that. So there is room to cut more, and I think you can get to a place where Senator Ron Johnson would probably be comfortable voting for it. But yes, the Senate has a lot of work to do between now and July 4th to get this over to President Trump's desk. And I really think that July 4th deadline needs to stick, because if this slips much farther, David, you're going to have a situation where it's going to start to have economic impact. You're going to have uncertainty in the market, and that's not good for the American taxpayer or the consumers.
Absolutely. I think it's time for Republicans to all come to the table. I mean, how often do we have the House and the Senate? I think, you know, for the most part, they agree on a lot of things. So hopefully just on these small little sticking points, they'll be able to get this through sooner than later to President Trump's desk. I do want to get your take on this before we let you go. Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado, he says the Democrat Party brand does not help anywhere. Take a listen to this.
I don't think nationally the Democratic brand helps very much anyway. I mean, anywhere. If it did, we wouldn't have lost to Donald Trump twice. You know, I know a lot of supporters of mine and friends of mine are furious at Donald Trump. Are furious at people they think aren't standing enough to Donald Trump. I am. But I'm also furious at the Democratic Party that has lost twice to Trump.
You know, we've been saying this since the November election. The Democrats are going to have to look in the mirror and really make some changes if they want to be successful and appeal to voters moving forward. We were reporting earlier today they're now spending $20 million to try to appeal to young men because they lost that demographic so much in November, and with the Republicans' success with trying to appeal to them. Before we let you go, Rob, your thoughts on what the Democrats need to do so that their brand might appeal to people a little bit better, like Michael Bennet was just saying?
Sure. I mean, the Democrats have completely lost the working class voter in this country. As you pointed out, they've also lost younger Americans. And I think they are in a party that's in disarray right now. They don't have a clear leader, and that is part of the problem. Those who have stepped up to the plate, whether it be Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders, I mean, they are pushing a far left vision. And I don't think that is the appeal that they're going to have with the broad swath of the American people. And so I think at the end of the day, they need to get back to some of those issues that Trump capitalized on, probably focusing first and foremost on the economy and inflation, since they were the ones that caused such a devastating problem for Americans to begin with.
Amen. So as we move forward, what are your thoughts in terms of, and I'm only asking this because we just mentioned the midterms, what needs to happen internally within the Republican Party to solidify things so that there aren't any surprises during the midterms and so that the Republicans can continue to keep their House? Because obviously Democrats are focusing on the midterms. That's where they're putting all their eggs, because they don't have too many eggs in the first place at this point.
Well, Terrence, going back to the previous question, I mean, one of the factors that has harmed Democrats is Donald Trump has been on the ballot, and we know that he has appeal among constituencies that Republicans traditionally have not been able to tap into, and that will be a potential problem in the 2026 midterm elections. And so I think Republicans would be wise to get busy codifying a lot of the executive orders that he has put in place over the course of his first few months in the White House. They should focus on those issues that are really motivating voters. And I think that one of the things that I saw yesterday, pollster Scott Rasmussen has a new poll out that showed that Republicans really suffered in April when it came to the economy and inflation. They've now bounced back, and they need to continue to ride that wave. They need to make sure that they're telling the American people how the policies that they are putting in place are leading them to a better situation where cost of living is down. They're not paying as much for gas, groceries, and rent. And those are all of the things that damage the Democrat brand, and specifically Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Rob, they've got to get that one big beautiful bill passed to make it one big beautiful law. If they don't, obviously that's going to be curtains, if you will. It's such an old word, curtains. It's going to be curtains for them, for sure. But what do you think? I mean, because in the Senate, we talked about that before. Is this all about Ron Johnson and others? But let's just take Ron Johnson for a second, just getting the best deal he can and using leverage at this point, because, I mean, you got to get it passed. You have to. You can't have this thing fail.
Well, there are 53 Republicans, and I think that they all have different elements of the bill that they want to see, different provisions in the bill that they want to see enacted into law, Ron Johnson being one of them. And so you will see this negotiation taking place in the news media and other places, but the real work is going to happen through the committee process and working with leadership to make sure that they put in place the best policies possible. There are already so many good things that are in the bill already. I mean, we talked about the Medicaid reforms already. We talked about immigration, but there are more things that could be done when it comes to reducing the size of government, David, and that is where I'm hoping the Senate can really get together people like Mike Lee, Rand Paul, Ron Johnson, and others who are really committed to cutting the growth of government. We cannot leave future generations with this debt problem that we have, and I think the one promise that Donald Trump has made with the support of people like Elon Musk to cut back on government, you've already found so many efficiencies. Let's continue to do that work and get it done.
Absolutely, Rob. I mean, we've done so much. The Trump administration has done so much to get our spending under control with DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. You'd hate to pass something that would almost make that a wash and really increase our spending more. We'll be keeping a close eye. Rob Bluey, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.